What's up guys, Ben Melican here from Mystery Tackle Box. As you can see, got the boat and truck rigged up. We're ready to go hit that lake, that beautiful lake right out there with 4 awesome baits for Mystery Tackle Box. I got them tied up right here. I don't want to give you too good of a look at them though, because I'm going to get out of the water and show you exactly what I'm talking about, exactly how to use those baits that came in my Mystery Tackle Box so you can catch a whole bunch more fish. Let's go. Alright, so first bait we're going to talk about throwing today is this Ima little stick topwater walking, spitting, really loud, noisy bait. And this is a perfect situation for it. You know, we got pre-spawn conditions and we're back in this big flat. So what I'm going to do is basically just work this thing and cover water with it. That's what I like about this walking topwater bait. I can have it out there, cover water with it. You can fish all different types of cover with it. We're just fishing a big grass flat right here. And when the fish are moving in or out, when they're spawning, when they're getting ready to spawn, when they're done spawning, this is just an awesome bait to throw around those active, hungry, moving bass to, even if they aren't gonna come up and react to it and just, you know, take the bait all the way down. It's a great way for them to show themselves. So you can come back, throw a Senko, a jig, a swim jig, whatever, by there and hopefully catch some. To me, topwater walking baits work really good in 2 different types of scenarios. And the first one, like we're doing right here, is on a giant flat. You can just flat out, you can cast these things a mile. You can cast them further than about any other topwater bait, and you can cover more water with them than about any other topwater bait. And it has a bigger draw than just about any other topwater bait. So for those reasons, a big shallow grass flat, a stump flat, an area with riprap on it are great places when those fish are moving and active to throw that topwater walking bait. Now the second time I like to throw the topwater walking bait is for really isolated targets when they just won't react very well with a frog or with a buzzbait or something, especially when there's a lot of wind. I've had days when there's like 1 to 2 foot waves crashing into man-made jetties and man-made riprap, stuff like that, and the fish aren't seeing a frog, a popper, a buzzbait. But you can get that topwater walking bait in there, walk it over the top of their heads and clack, 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 make a ton of noise with it, and it's the only bait that they'll react to. You know, they won't eat a bait below the surface, they won't eat a jig, a Senko, nothing, but for whatever reason, they just react extremely well to that walking bait. All right, so the second bait in my Mystery Tackle Box we're gonna talk about today works extremely well in the situation we're fishing right now with that topwater walking bait, especially if you can't get up and have them come chase that one because the water's too cold or they're just not quite active enough, and that is the good old chattering bait. This is a special exclusive color actually to Mystery Tackle Box, so hopefully you guys got one of these in your box. It's like a black and purple with a purple and black swim bait trailer. Really a great bait in the pre-spawn, the post-spawn, the summer, anytime. But like I think I've told you guys in many other videos, my favorite time to throw a chatterbait is the pre-spawn period when you're fishing around grass. This bait is designed with a really tight vibration, a lot tighter vibrating bait than a lot of other chatterbaits that have split rings and stuff, and it just gets a ton of bites. I've caught so many fish on this thing throughout the years. The type of tackle I generally throw it on, I like a longer rod. I throw it on a 7.4 or a 7.6, moderate fast tapering graphite rod. You know, a lot of guys throw on a bunch of different things. I'm not going to tell you how I do it's right, how other people do it's right, but I like this nice parabolic bend, a more parabolic bend and a graphite rod. That way you have a little bit more tip and sensitivity to when that chatterbait gets bogged down in the grass. You can pop it up and pop it free. That's when you're going to get those reaction strikes, right? But at the same time, it's got enough give that those fish can inhale that bait. A lot of times those fish throw slack in your line and you don't want to pull it away from them too fast, so you want a slower rod. I also fish this bait. A lot of guys I know fish it on monofilament, so it has a little bit less give. It can give a little bit more, I should say, when a fish bites. A lot of guys fish it on braid so they can snap it free of the grass. I like a nice middle ground. I throw it on fluorocarbon, 6:3 to 1 gear ratio reel, usually 17-pound fluorocarbon. You can get away with a little bit heavier line, just like a spinner bait. You know, this isn't a super natural bait. You don't need to worry about the fish being line shy. It's not something that's super finessey. But yeah, man, just cast and retrieve. Get that dude bogged up in this grass in the pre-spawn phase and then pop it out. Give it those nice hard, sharp pops. And that's usually when you're gonna get bait. It's just a super, super effective bait in this custom color it comes in, this black and purple. Awesome for that stained water, especially cloudy conditions like we got today. All right, so the next bait we're going to talk about is a Midwest staple. Guys like me here in Nebraska and all over the Ozark area have been throwing these things for years. They're great in the pre-spawn, they're great in cold water, and really you can use them all year long. Of course, that is the jerkbait. This is a Strike Pro Inquisitor 110, so it's a 110 millimeter bait. Super good looking, like American shad type color, and this is where I like to fish this stuff, like especially this time of year. You know, it's warmed up a little bit. We got fish that are already ready to move up and start thinking about spawning, and then once they're done and they're on their way out, an area like this is absolutely perfect. We got some riprap leading back into a spawning pocket, and since the water has warmed up, you know, I always match the cadence of my jerkbait and the pause time based on the activity level of the fish. If it's really cold water, they're not going to be active, so I'm going to let it sit for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. If they're active fish and the water's a lot warmer, I'm going to give it some hard twitches. You know, I'm going to work that thing fast. I'm going to only wait 1 or 2 seconds in between, kind of like we got today. And so that's really how I like to approach my jerkbait fishing. You know, in Nebraska, I know a lot of guys have these type areas too, but we have a lot of these natural riprap areas, and that's where I love to throw that jerkbait whenever there's some wind blowing next to it, especially cleaner water. Jerkbaits really excel in clean water. It's a visual bait. It's not a reaction bait. Fish do react out of it. They'll lash out at it, but they're not eating it because they hear it. They can feel the vibration or anything. They're eating a jerkbait because they're seeing that bait. They're coming up and eating that bait. It's a visual bait, so you need cleaner water, and to break up that surface clarity, a little bit of wind helps a ton, like we got today too. You know, I get asked all the time, what's the best combo, rod, reel, line, everything for a jerkbait? I throw mine on a crankbait rod. I like a 7-foot medium power, moderate fast action crankbait rod, a graphite rod that is. I don't like the slow flimsiness of fiberglass. I think it's too cumbersome. You have that rod pointed down, you're hitting it all day long. You need good responsive reaction of feeling what the jerkbait's doing. And so for that reason, I like a nice shorter rod, a 7-foot rod shorter for me, something that has a nice taper to it, a nice moderate taper, but it has enough power through the tip that when you hit that bait, it is going to flutter. It's going to make that bait shoot to the side. And then as far as line goes, always fluorocarbon. You know, some guys use monofilament. I like the lack of stretch fluorocarbon gives me. It does get a little bit brittle in water below 40 degrees. So you got to just be careful with it. You don't want to not check your knot the entire day or something like that. But yeah, it's 10, 12, nothing heavier than 15-pound fluorocarbon. You want to let that bait work naturally. So that's how I like to do it. And then once again, a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio reel. You don't want to overwork your jerkbait. You want to just give it those nice subtle twitches, especially when that water's cold. 7-to-1 gear ratio, oftentimes I feel like you can work it too fast, blow that bait out, and make it look not natural. So that's what I do. Man, these fish are tough on me today. Nothing even on the jerkbait. So we're gonna pull out Old Faithful. We're gonna pull out a football jig. I love to throw the football jig. This is a perfection football jig. Came in my mystery tackle box. They sent me this supernatural craw color, which I really, really like. And look at this cool football jig. It's got like these 2 little bars on it that are gonna make sure it stands up perfectly, make that craw trailer I got on there be in its defensive posture the entire way back to the boat. Super, super cool looking bait. Let's make some casts with it. So I like to work a football jig in the spring and really any time of year around rock cover and around just any type of hard bottom cover. To me, you know, it's a lot more of a structure bait, it's dragging bait, than it is a bait that you're gonna move and you're gonna fish wood and timber and stuff with, or grass. Football jig really excels around hard cover like rock. And so I make long casts with it. I'm fishing the same type of areas as when I fish that jerkbait on that man-made riprap and stuff, except I'm covering a different area of the water column, obviously. You know, those fish might not be active enough to eat that jerkbait, or some days it just seems like they're feeding up and they'll eat the jerkbait or a topwater bait. Some days they're looking down, it seems, for whatever reason. You know, we don't know why the fish do what they do a lot of times, but a football jig is a great way to get a couple more bites and get some really, really big bites. You know, those big fish love harder cover, especially early in the season, and then into the summer as those bait fish get around those offshore rock piles and stuff. And a football jig's really, really tough to beat. It's a great big fish bait. It's a great bait to catch numbers on. It's a really effective bait if you can fish it nice and slowly. You know, a lot of people got questions about what gear do you throw a jig on. Well, there's so many different types of jigs. You're gonna have a lot of different types of tackle that you throw it on. Football jig, to me, you want a little bit longer rod because you're making long casts. You want to be able to take up a lot of line on the hook set. So I go no shorter than 7.2 or 7.3. You know, my sweet spot generally is in that 7.2 to 7.6 foot range, and I always like a heavy rod. I don't want something with too much tip on it. I want it to have power all the way throughout the blank, and more of a moderate fast taper too. I've moved to that moderate fast taper so much for these different techniques, for a bunch of different techniques. It keeps fish pinned throughout the fight. It makes for a long cast. It can load that rod up and let you really launch that bait. It's excellent for football jigs and other big offshore type baits. And then the reel and the lines that I like to use, I use a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. Again, I want as fast a reel as I can possibly get away with. I don't want to overwork the bait, but at the same time, when I get a bite a long ways away, I want to be able to pick all that line up. And then as far as that line goes, I really like 15 and 17 pound line. To me, that's the sweet spot. If you're not fishing very heavy cover, you can go down to 15, especially if you're fishing deeper. You know, you don't want to be fishing 20-pound line in 25 to 40 feet of water. The line drags way too much. You're just not going to get a good feel for what your bait's doing down there. And like I said, you need to be feeling for that rock cover and fishing very, very slowly. Absolutely key to stay in that 15 to 17 pound fluorocarbon range. Okay guys, just got off the water. I hope you can use those 4 different baits, the tips I gave you, to get out and catch a whole bunch more fish. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you very, very soon. Peace.